Well, hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy Thursday. And so excited to be with you here today. And I am live streaming from Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, where we are having a huge blizzard. Anyway, did a little errand this morning and roads are slippery. So glad I made it in one piece, shall we say. And I'm really excited about our show for you today. So thank you for joining us. You are here for the Live with Lesli show. And as you probably can guess, my name is Lesli Bitel, and I am a practice building expert specifically for health professionals. So happy to be joined today by a very special guest, Ashley Hurst. And it's funny, Ashley is in a warm place, thus the tank top. And I am in like a super cold place wearing the warmest thing I could possibly find in my closet. So it just goes to show. Anyway, so really good to see you, Ashley. Ashley is one of my favorite people, and just really excited to have a conversation with her today. And specifically, so I'm going to ask her to share a little bit about her backstory, but she is from the Crohn's and Colitis Dietitians, and has an amazing practice. I feel like we can learn so much from Ashley and what she's doing, and really how she's gone about building her practice so successfully. And one of the things that we're going to specifically hone in on today is how to grow your own supplement line. All right, so really a great topic. So we'll be talking a little bit about the concept of white labeling supplements, and also, utilizing other sources of supplementation for clients. And of course, we'll be chatting just a little bit about, again, her business model, maybe touch on how she grew her team. Although that is a topic I'd really love to delve in deeper with Ashley in a whole separate Facebook Live, because she's really done a phenomenal job, really stepping in and acting as a CEO, right? And Ashley does have a cash-based business. So this is a question I get all the time. Can I do this in a cash-based business? What would that look like? So Ashley is really, I think, a role model for all of us in terms of how we can, really, really be successful in a cash-based business, highly niched. And Ashley's going to talk about that. In the business, they specialize in Crohn's and colitis, so specifically IBD. And there is a whole backstory to that as well. All right, Ashley, so let's jump in. So to kind of kick things off, I'd love it if you could share a little bit about, your bio and, what you're up to these days.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me. It's always an honor to get to chat with you and chat with you in this context as well. And it's crazy because you and I started working together, I think it was like back in 2018, and we worked together for a long time. And Lesli is really a part of the reason why I was able to grow my business and figure out, really what I wanted to do. So I'm always thankful for you for that. And
thank you.
Yeah. So I started my business, private practice started a business about 13 years ago, but I started my private practice back in 2015 and just really struggled from the start with like trying to navigate that financial piece like a lot of us do. And then when I worked with Lesli, she really helped me get a lot more niche down on, who I actually wanted to work with, what I wanted to get out of it. And that really transformed my journey moving forward. So, in 2020, I believe it was when I finally decided to do just Crohn's and ulcerative colitis, and that really allowed my business to really take off.
Yeah, tell everyone a little bit about what you were doing prior to niching down, because this is super, super interesting. In part because quite often, and I'm sure you can remember this day, Ashley, I remember it very well. Intuitively, we think if we niche down, it's limiting, right? It's going to limit our opportunities. And interestingly, this is such a great case study to show that the opposite is true. But tell us a little bit about who you were targeting back when we first met.
Yeah. So originally I was doing GI and autoimmune and kind of just seeing anyone who would come to me,
Yep.
just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then it just got further and further honed in on who I wanted to work with. So then I realized, oh, I really like these GI cases. And then I realized, okay, I really like working with people who have what I have, which is ulcerative colitis, and I really get them. And I think my biggest fear though was just I didn't want to be defined by ulcerative colitis and Crohn. I didn't want that to define me. But ironically, that's like what brings me the most joy now is the fact that those are the people I want to work with. Those are the people that I want to create resources for. And so, yeah, I still look back and I think that is one of the hardest things that I did was decide this is what I'm doing and this is the only thing I'm going to do. But it's a process, and sometimes you just have to take the next step and know that like you can always change your mind. You know, you're not stuck. You know, it's your business. So. But once I did take that jump, it really transformed everything, and it was really the growth that made me think about other revenue streams, like recognizing the need for them. Because as you grow and add more people to your team, you start to realize that you need to create this whole new role, and that's the role of CEO or someone working on your business and not in your business.
Yes.
And so that is where I realized, okay, so that means creating a whole nother salary. So you can't just do that if your current model is only set up for just you. You have to create other revenue streams to be able to pay yourself. And also to just pay your employees well, to have other benefits, to whatever it is that you want to do, you have to have the revenue stream to provide for that. So that's really where I started looking at more passive income streams.
I love that. Yeah. So, and again, I really want to dig more into this. Maybe we can do another Facebook Live on this topic of growing your team. But it's so important to plan ahead and to ultimately to set yourself up as the CEO so the business doesn't completely rely upon you 24/7. Like if you get even the flu, right?
Exactly.
Like you're not making money. Like seriously, it's 100% on you. And so that is typically how these businesses are kind of run behind the scenes. And let's just call it for what it is. It's a great starting point. You got to rely on yourself in the beginning, but ultimately we want to kind of move into a place where, gosh, if you want to take a vacation, you want to take a month off, you can do that without completely, wrecking your business, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I wanted to bring up too is I originally hired because I was dealing with my own burnout. But then you have to think about how to manage burnout for the people you hire too, because they're going to run into the same thing if you don't build in other revenue streams to support your business and you don't want a business model that is only seeing clients 24/7. You want some space and ability and you have to create other revenue streams built into that to be able to prevent burnout too, and to be able to, if you ever wanted to, delegate more off your plate to where you're not running it as much. So
yeah, absolutely. I love that. So, all right. So now you run this business. Tell us a little bit about like your business model at this point.
Yeah. So I've now been able to delegate majority of my role to where I wanted to do that so that if anything ever happens, it's going to continue running. Like if I need to take some time away, if I need to be there for my family, whatever it is, it can still run, and me not have to worry about it. And a part of being able to do that is hiring the right people for one, hiring really good people that, care about your business as much as you do. And that are really, that you can really, they're really skilled in certain areas. So in the areas that you need. So yeah, now I've been able to, now I don't do consults myself. I
Great.
I just do, leading my business and trying to delegate more out. And I just recently passed off sales calls too. So yeah, such a win,
That's amazing.
Yeah, I feel like,
Ooh.
we often get real excited about like revenue and numbers, but there's also this other aspect of being able to step away if you need to. And that's an even, I think, bigger challenge, and you have to learn different skills to be able to do that. But it's such a big win when you can kind of breathe that sigh of relief of like, okay, I know things are going to be okay because I trust the people I hired.
Great. So, so you got my curiosity piqued because when we were working together, we decided, at least temporarily, that you would maintain kind of the business growth area, right? So like the sales part, because you were really well trained from working together and from your own experience in how to have those really powerful calls with potential clients that really lead to more yeses. So I'm curious who's, you don't have to name names, but like, are the other dietitians doing these sales calls now?
No, I mean, in really, we had to rethink our whole marketing strategy this year because I felt the need to have less calls so that I can focus on growing my supplement line, focus on kind of other interests in the company. And so I passed it on I have two admins, and one of them is a nurse so she has a little bit of a clinical background to ask some of the questions. But so I've been training her over time with just how to kind of work through really just conveying what we offer in a way that feels aligned. And, and we've also changed our website a little bit to kind of be more, to walk people through
the process,
some of the obstacles and, that come up when thinking about working with someone.
Okay. Yep. I noticed that. Okay. So that's fantastic. So wow. So you're really able to dig in and place more focus in parts of the business that need your attention as the CEO, which is incredible. So, all right. So, in terms of, I guess let's take it just a little step back. What would you say some of the challenges are, or perhaps were for you when you were looking at growing?
Yeah, I think some of the challenges we all run into when we start adding people is this challenge of managing the wanting to grow thing with the amount of money that you have. So growth requires money. The more you get down the path, the more that you realize anytime you add on more people, you add on more work. So you add on more work for your admins, and it just trickles down. So you don't realize this when you're starting off because it's just you or just you and one other person.
Right.
But it really exponentially increases the more people. So now we have like seven people, almost really our graphic designer is almost our 8th person. And that's a lot of people. So anything that is like adding up, with just you will add up times 8, when you start adding all these people, because there's different work that comes about with each person and with the amount of people that you're taking on in terms of client load. So if you're taking on, 10 people when you start, who maybe you get 1 or 2 questions every month. Now, if you take on 100 people, you probably get a lot more questions every month coming into your inbox, a lot more calls. It just really adds up. And the challenge that I had was I wanted to grow. I wanted to continue that growth, but it costs money to grow. And the current model of just seeing patients and just taking it that way did not really allow for the type of growth that I was experiencing. So you'll start to realize when you grow really fast that you're going to need more revenue to continue that growth versus, setting up a wait list. So I really wanted to continue the growth, and it really required that I think outside the box and think about other revenue streams outside of seeing clients. So that's really where I started to grow those out. So we built out a library that's subscription based, and then we also we have a supplement line too that we've started to build out.
Okay. So, and anyone that is watching either live or if you happen to catch the replay, it just so happens that I am having a live event this week on this very topic, how to grow multiple streams of income for your practice in order to help you to, to kind of to move away from your 100% reliance on one-on-one. So recognizing, especially in the beginning, like one-on-one is probably our bread and butter for the most part, and I'm all for it. That being said, as you continue to get more experience and are looking for ways to grow, we definitely, just like Ashley's saying, we want to add additional revenue streams, right? So if you haven't registered, go get yourself a seat, lesliebitel.com/2023 MSI, which stands for multiple streams of income. So you can join us tonight. We're on day 4. We'll be doing actually quite a bit of mindset work tonight. But you can also catch the replays by registering. So, okay. So that is super, super important. So what would you say, what are the things that, we as healthcare practitioners don't know, but maybe need to know when desiring to grow? Just, to set ourselves up to have our businesses less reliant. Like, are there any tips that you can share?
I think one that comes to mind is as soon as you start adding people, you start to realize that there's so much training involved when you hire somebody.
Yeah.
That's really, in the very beginning, it's very expensive to hire somebody. That very first part of hiring, you're spending a lot of time training them, and none of that is revenue producing. And so it really is expensive to hire. So you have to sort of plan for that. You have to plan a bit for the hiring process. The other thing that comes up is having systems, like having a system in place for everything that you do.
Yeah.
You don't even have to write SOPs for everything. You can create videos and maybe have someone turn those into standard operating procedures. But having those in place can really just help make a lot of everything go smoother versus if you're trying to figure it out on, right off when you're hiring someone, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more work for you. And if you wait too long to hire, sometimes that can be complicated too, because a lot of people will wait until they're burnout and wait too long. But really the earlier, the better. As soon as you start thinking about it, you should probably start looking.
Okay. Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. And yeah, so, and I can speak from a little experience in this regard as well. Even just having not necessarily obviously additional practitioners, but team members helping me in my business, it is incredibly helpful and so important to have some kind of processes that are documented versus, I'm just saying, this used to be me. I had one VA and it was all in her head. Let me tell you, that did not end well. It was all in her head. And it was kind of like pulling teeth, getting it out of the head onto, some reproducible kind of format. So if you think, oh yeah, I can relate, it's all in my head. If that's you, it's probably a good first step would be to start documenting in whatever way you want. Like Ashley said, it could be videos. We use Loom for this purpose. And like a really great way to start would be just to, video document as you're working, right? And just kind of explain what the task is, why you're doing it a certain way, and just video record your screen as you go through the steps. So that alone could be a really helpful thing.
Yeah, I was going to add to that too. I think one of the biggest things people face as entrepreneurs too is that our first thought is always going to be, I can't pass that on. I'm the only one that can do it.
Yep.
This is something everybody goes through, but you have to remind yourself too, like all of these businesses that you see, they all started with having to learn how to pass it on. It's like one of the hardest things to do is passing something on, because you're having to break it down systematically in your head, like what you do, put it on paper, and then train someone else to do it. And but you can do it. It is possible to do it and do it
So
effectively.
relate to that. Oh my
You
God.
have to go through that challenge.
Like full transparency here. I remember this so well, like 2 years ago, when I was 1 year into doing these Facebook Live broadcasts every week. So prior, I was doing it all myself, like the graphics, the description, the emails. If I had a guest, I did it all 100%. And so when I got a new team, they were like, okay, let's rethink this. And I seriously remember saying, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's possible. I really think it has to be me. I cannot like visualize it. Boy, was I wrong. Oh my goodness. So now
wrong though.
it is a good wrong, seriously. But I was like, I'm just not picturing how like someone else can pick this up and run with it. And Ashley, you went through the process of working with my team, to schedule, and it's pretty much like a well-oiled machine at this point.
Yeah.
So like they took it on. It's a beautiful thing, because the reality is, guys, like for the most part, I just show up. Okay. I prep a little bit, I make recommendations on, people that I think would be a great fit for the show. Otherwise, it's a really nice place to be. I'm just saying. So case in point.
It's good to be wrong. And also it's, it helps you put your ego aside and just acknowledge like someone can be better than you at this. Like you don't have to be the best person at it,
I know. It was just so funny, because I just remember that so clearly. Like, no, I don't think it's possible. And they're like, let us try. I'm like, all right. But so anyway, super funny. So so, and the other thing is hire people that have talents that maybe you don't have. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's a compliment. So let's dig into our topic. And that is, this concept of private labeling, right? And really growing your own supplement line. So I'd love to kind of get the backstory on, because, I'm a huge fan of Fullscript. I love, love, love Fullscript. It's so easy. And, you do have like a 35% profit margin if assuming you don't pass any of the discount along to your clients. So tell us a little bit about the difference here between white labeling and, utilizing a platform where it's all kind of done for you.
Yeah. So there's all different levels of private labeling to manufacturing. Private labeling is really where you take someone else's product and put your label on it, and something that's already been tested, formulated, all of that. And there's different levels of even that. So there's, Metagenics and Designs for Health, and there's Diamogen. There's a whole bunch of companies that offer that sort of private labeling service. And then there's steps beyond that. If you want to like change a couple of things, or if you want to formulate your own, you can do all different levels of that within that same context, all the way to, shipping raw material to a location and formulating your own and having someone put those in containers. So you can do all different levels. And the difference between all these different levels is the amount of money that you have to invest in something like this. Okay. So usually private labeling is a good starting place for if you ever want to grow a supplement line, because the investment is much lower. You don't have to do any testing. You don't have to do any shipping things places or holding a lot of inventory. So it's a really good starting place for someone who wants to get into creating their own supplement line.
Okay, so it would be like Designs for Health. You mentioned Designs for Health and Metagenics. Those are a couple brands that I'm familiar with, and I'm assuming our audience is as well. So basically, you would say, okay, I want a private label like this probiotic or this vitamin D, and you would get like your own branding, like maybe work with a graphics person to create a brand, and you probably also need a name, right?
Right.
For
Right.
for the product, something that's
Mhm.
different. Okay. And then, so then I guess where I could use a little clarification, and probably our audience as well, is how is that distributed? Like, tell us how that works. So you said you don't need much inventory.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Okay. So I've done both. I've done private labeling and all the way to manufacturing and holding
Okay.
inventory somewhere else. So where I started though was private labeling, because with private labeling, you only have to order like 10 to 20 of something.
Okay.
Whereas if you do something more advanced, you may have to order 2,000 or more.
Wow.
And so 2,000 of something is a lot to keep in your house, right? Or if you're not going to put it in your house, you'll have to get a fulfillment center.
Okay.
So private labeling is a great and natural first step if you're wanting to create any sort of loyal following with your supplement line, so that you
Okay.
can grow it to wherever you want it to go. The good thing about private labeling is that you get slightly more of a margin of profit compared to if you're using, if you are using something else like full script,
Okay.
you get a little bit of a
Is it like
larger margin.
50%?
Yeah, around 50%, which I think
Okay.
full script is like 35,
Yep.
which is, it's just all about how much work you want to do versus how much
Right.
profit you want to get.
Okay. All right. So you've got like maybe an extra 15%, right? To play with, which can be quite significant. So how, like, just to kind of play with the numbers a little bit, because then you're responsible for the fulfillment, right? And the shipping. Am I
Right.
correct? So like when you add it all up, like how do things land, in terms of your profit? Like, would you say it goes down by, like another 10%? So from 50 to like maybe 40, or what would you say?
Well, the thing with private labeling is you get to decide what your price is, right?
Okay.
So you can decide whatever your price is. There's volume discounts too. So if you buy a
Okay.
larger amount, you can get discounts that way. You can set it up where on the back end of your website, maybe customers pay for shipping up until a
Okay.
certain number, like maybe $100 or
Yeah.
$150,
Okay.
so that you're not covering the shipping costs. So that's one
Got
way that
it.
you can do that. Um,
Okay.
on the front end of things, like as you're building it, yeah, you're probably going to be the one, fulfilling orders in the beginning. So
Mhm.
if you have a long-term vision of where you want to go with it, it's not a bad idea. Like as long as you have that vision of where you want to head and at what point will you get a fulfillment center? At what point would it make
Okay.
sense for you to not be doing that anymore? So for me, I started off with shipping everything myself. And, as you go, you start to learn a little bit about different, easier ways of doing it. Right.
Okay.
So, I started off like writing all my labels out and then going to the post office and standing in line. And then I realized like, oh, there are places where you can get cheaper shipping. There are places where
Okay.
you can just print it off and it doesn't take as much
Right.
time. There's so many different ways that you can expedite it
Okay.
and cut corners a little bit with like the cost aspects. So I learned a little bit about that in the very beginning. And then at some point I started to realize, okay, I think I'm ready to give up the fulfilling myself. And so that's when I went and looked at getting fulfillment centers and I started getting into formulating my own products and what that would
Okay.
look like. And that's a whole nother conversation of like how you'll dig deep and how you'll ask the questions you need to ask to be able to do stuff like that. Because there's not many resources on how to do that part. That is something you kind
Right.
of have to learn through doing.
Okay. And the motivation for that is, you look at a product and say, gosh, I think it needs to be tweaked. I would like to see more of this and less of that.
Yeah, it could be that you want a specific formulation. It could be that maybe in looking at your client load, you start to see, okay, when I paired this prebiotic with that probiotic, I get a really good result. And so
Okay.
maybe you think, well, this would make a great product. And you can even go as far as maybe that's something you want to research even. Like that's something that we've done is we started to see kind of some trends. And so then we've used our supplement line to then, think about researching that particular. So there's so many different ways that you can, there's so many different ways you could take it. And, sometimes it's about changing the quality. Maybe you want to formulate to change quality. Sometimes it's maybe I want to increase my revenue even further, my profit margins by manufacturing. Because with you manufacture, there's a lot more room for negotiation in terms of the pricing. So you can get larger margins.
Okay. I would imagine also like raw ingredients, like maybe, you want to ensure they're organic or, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Fairly grown and, just things like that. Okay. That makes a ton of sense. So are you doing that now? Tell us where you are in your process.
Yeah. We've definitely started that journey of figuring out, like, really looking at everything that we have and saying, what's the 20% that's responsible for 80% of the profit? Like really honing in on like the top items and how we can get better margins and how we can really make it bigger than it is now.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I love that. Wow. That's very cool. So obviously you're focusing on products that are going to be beneficial for your IBD patients.
Yes. Yeah.
And then in terms of fulfillment, because that's the part, like it's hard to really imagine kind of being tied to that.
Right.
I know people do it. Like there's all kinds of businesses, home-based businesses where part of the deal is you got to fulfill, right?
Yeah.
Like, even Etsy, and I know there's ways that you can do that. I think I just saw an ad on YouTube. I think it was just yesterday for like a Pitney Bowes like little desktop thing where you can get your postage, right? You weigh your package. You can pretty much like do everything right at the desktop, which is pretty cool as well. So I can see how that would save a ton of time. So where do you even start to look for these fulfillment centers?
Yeah, I mean, I had my VA search for about a year for what we're looking for. Yeah, because we have a whole spreadsheet with like pros and cons of every place that we looked, and we had questions we asked, and because you have to ask questions like, is it temperature controlled? There's all these just micro charges that you get, so you have to make sure it makes sense before moving into a fulfillment center. And you have to also consider, how would your business benefit if you were not fulfilling orders? Like, because there is the cost of you fulfilling orders versus the cost of someone else fulfilling orders. Because if you can bring in more revenue, which would ultimately bring in more supplement sales or whatever it is you want to drive, then that could ultimately benefit you to where you could afford a fulfillment center. So sometimes you just start to get to a point eventually where you're like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore myself. And it makes sense to kind of branch out and have someone else do it. So it takes time to find the right fit for a fulfillment center, but there's a number of different options. It's just a matter of knowing the questions you need to ask.
Okay. So I want to put it out there, guys. If this, I'd love to get a little feedback from our audience, regardless of whether you're watching this live stream or if you're going to go back and catch the replay. What are your thoughts? Have you ever considered, having your own supplement line, white labeling your own supplement line? What are your thoughts around this? How intrigued are you on this topic? So I'd love to get a little bit of feedback. Is it something you've ever considered, or maybe, gosh, never really thought about it? So I do see several, I can think of one online doctor in particular who happens to be in Texas. And she's got a ton of what I assume are white labeled products.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm not 100%. I know when I was like years ago, I used to call and be like, hey, who's your manufacturer for this product, right? And I know they use a lot of designs for health, but I don't know if they've kind of moved into this new territory of, creating their own products, right? Like that whole step further. Super interesting. Okay, so let's see. I know what we should talk about. Here's a really hot topic is let's delve into that perceived or real. I want to get your sense, although I think I can guess based on what we're talking about, that the conflict of interest potentially with, dietitians or healthcare professionals selling or offering supplements. Because I think I'd love to hear from our audience. Sometimes I think this can be a hindrance. And I get a lot of people still who say, but Lesli, is that in our scope? Is that in our scope of practice? Happens all the time. So what do you know about that? What's your take?
Yeah. I mean, first off, I think of any healthcare practitioner, I think this is the most in our scope.
Right.
Who else do you want formulating your supplements? I mean, I don't want someone with only one nutrition course formulating my supplements, or someone who has no nutrition insight. And this is why we have products that aren't that great on the market to like everyday consumers that you see in the stores. We need more dietitians to formulate and to create and put their own take on things, because I think we're the ones in the room that need to be doing it. So I do think that it's in our scope. In terms of like the ethics side, I think anything can feel icky or unethical. I think like literally anything. Like, so I think it's even just your dietitian services itself, like it can feel not in line. So it is important to make sure that you're in line with what feels right for you, because that can look different for everybody. For me, it's kind of evolved over time. So at some point I've gotten to the point where I was like, I think what would feel in line for me is if a lot of our profits went to furthering research. And so you can have like social aspects to your certain give back aspects to your supplement line. There's a number of different ways that you can make it feel aligned. It doesn't have to feel weird or not in line with your values. So I think that's an important aspect that we don't always consider. I've definitely I've experienced dietitians give me negative feedback, or other people, but I think we also need to consider like all kinds of healthcare doctors have conflict of interest. Like, doctors get pharmaceutical cutbacks. Like there's all different ways that this is already built into healthcare, and it's up to us to figure out what's aligned for us,
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would even go so far to say, you got to believe obviously in the product, right?
Yeah.
You don't just jump into this because you want to make a dime, right? Mm-hmm. That is, so it's kind of a philosophical decision. Like, let's say you're getting, you've moved into a place where you're using like an online dispensary, and you're getting comfortable and you're seeing results, right? You're really seeing like the difference between clients that are, taking your recommended supplements versus not, right? That really starts to build your confidence, I would say. And so, and it just is, it's going to feel better and actually like you're doing the world good, not just better, but good, right? Because you're really seeing the difference play out from a clinical perspective. And of course, you're on top of the research, right? Like you're familiarizing yourself. So at the end of the day, it's like any kind of marketing or sales where you got to feel good about it. You got to know in your heart that it's in the best interest of your patient or client. Otherwise, I would say don't even go there, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah.
because it's not going to be authentic, and
Right.
people, you just don't want to go there in healthcare. People really can sense that you don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
But right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between someone saying you can only purchase our supplements versus, hey, I think we have something, and hey, I think someone else has something else,
Right.
or I think maybe this isn't a good option. I think that's where the ethics is. I don't think it's a matter of if you do or don't sell
True.
supplementation. It really comes down to what you feel good about and your own personal values and ethics.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I can just speak from when I had my practice, how, when recommending supplements, and trust me, back then it was way more complicated, because you kind of had to be that middle person. And I know I've talked about that before. That was super awkward. Let me tell you, being that middle person, having to put the order in, collecting them. It was kind of a mess. But now it's super easy. And I just think it's like anything, you got to feel comfortable with it. You got to see the efficacy. You got to be on top of the research to know that you're actually helping your patients and clients, right? So it has to come from the heart in that regard.
Yeah. And I think too, when you think about the products on the market, like think about, what is it? Like Centrum, like they have, is it ethical to sell a really a not as great product that maybe their markup is like, I think I have looked at their markup before, and it's significant. It's like crazy. It costs, less than $1 to make, and then they're selling it for 10. I mean, that's a big markup.
And
is that ethical?
And to kind of piggyback on that is, like, I never felt good about recommending, like, buying stuff on Amazon. Like, how could I that was me. I just was like, how can I feel good about that when I don't know how these products are being stored? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of crazy things that you hear go on, especially in the world of supplements. So, so like, if I'm going to make some recommendations, of course, you can get your stuff via a different source, but as a practitioner, I can't really advocate, because I don't know where it's sourced. I don't know these fine details that could impact efficacy and safety, quite frankly.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, I think we're selling ourselves short as dietitians if we think it's out of our scope, because like who else's scope is it? It's, I mean, this is our realm.
That is such a good point.
Yeah.
Who else's scope would it be? Exactly. Like someone with a business degree. Like, that's probably
the people doing it. Yeah.
That's who's doing it now.
Yeah.
How's that working for you? Not very well, right? So yeah, I love that. That is such a great perspective. Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is so interesting. So so I think earlier you said a good first step is kind of delving into private labeling, right? It just for like, a few steps that our audience can take to kind of explore this as an option. What would you say?
Yeah, I think private labeling is a great first step, and just thinking, honestly, asking yourself, where do you want to take this? Where is your ultimate goal? And kind of looking at it as a first step, because a lot of people feel like, oh, it's like not as good to start with private labeling versus doing something, manufacturing something. But the reality is if you're going to manufacture, you're going to need at least 10 to 20 grand to manufacture something.
There you go.
That's an important factor. The other thing to consider too is that, a lot of things are private labeled. Like if you were to look at like luxury sunglasses, for example, they all come from the same manufacturer. They just have a label. Yeah, I think it's Exotica or something like that. But when you really think about, when you stop thinking like just nutrition and ethics and start thinking, okay, like a business person, you really start to open your eyes to like everything has private labeling.
Yeah.
This is the only realm where we give each other hate for considering private labeling. But But yeah, I mean, everything starts with that. And then over time, you kind of build and you get more customized and you get better profits. And so it's just stepping stone, really.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. And for those of you that have really done, don't have supplements in your practice at all, I always say really the first step then is to jump in with full script, right?
Yeah.
Just to get yourself comfortable. They've got like lots of amazing protocols that you can follow and really kind of hold your hand. And it's a great company. I've had personal experiences with them that enable me to really vouch for them and their customer service. So, and again, they're vetting the product. So, so I feel like that is a great first step for people that don't really have anything to do with supplements, even if it's for yourself and your family, right?
Absolutely.
Why not? Like, who doesn't need vitamin D? Tell me. Even people that live in Texas wearing tank tops like Ashley, right? Yeah. I mean, I remember when I remember one summer, I was so shocked. I was super tan, playing golf like all the time. It was a great summer. And I went and got my vitamin D tested and it wasn't even, it was below 30. I was totally shocked. So, I mean, anyway, case in point, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, great. This is so fascinating. Any kind of final words of wisdom as we wrap up our conversation today, Ashley?
Yeah, I would just encourage people, if this intrigues you, look into it, figure out where you stand. I think it is within our scope, and yeah, I think that can be a great way, if it's in line with you, to help expand your practice, allow yourself to grow, allow yourself to take care of yourself and your employees. And I think it's a great option for people that are interested in it.
Me too. And a great way to serve your people in a new way, a great way to kind of set yourself up for multiple streams of income, right? Which is super important, as we've talked about, just so that we're not as reliant on you. I talk to so many practitioners. The number one thing I hear for practitioners who are, relatively successful is burnout. Day in and day out. That is what I hear. I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. I want to do all these things, but how am I going to do it? I don't have the bandwidth, and I'm not really making that much money to boot. It's a real issue. So if that speaks to you, I would just say we need to talk. How's that? Reach out. I can help. Certainly, get you on the right track towards achieving multiple streams of income, because it really is important. I always say it's like a healthy plate. You guys can all relate to a healthy plate, right? It's variety. And I would say same is true for a healthy business. You want more than one revenue stream, so you're not just completely reliant, because, if you have to take time off, can be a real detriment to the business. So we got to kind of plan ahead, think ahead. We need to put on our CEO caps, right, Ashley? And that's what you've done so successfully. So proud of you.
Thank you.
So, all right, guys, great spending this time with you. Really enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you so much, Ashley, for sharing your wisdom. And I think this is a great topic, and we just might have more to come on this, right, in the future.
Yeah. Thanks for having me too.
You bet. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next week. And thanks again, Ashley. Really appreciate your time. Bye for now.